This is CNC World, a new perspective.
これまでの頑張ってきた疲れがね出てきて、ある種心身ともに疲労した。
It's been exactly 1 year, and the victims have been working hard to go back to the normal life they once lived before the disaster.
It's hard. Life now is really hard. It's a big change for us.
At the moment, it's quite normal that people might feel exhausted both physically and psychologically. Some even might think about suicide. So I'm thinking what I can do for them and making them to have the faith to live and live with confidence.
With his schedule fully arranged, Kazuyoshi OMATA, psychology professor, led a team of psychologists to Miyagi-Ken Prefecture, one of the worst-hit areas by earthquake after the disaster took place. He told CNC that the impact of psychological trauma from the disaster can be devastating.
I found the mental aftershocks brought to the survivors were worse than we thought. Many of the survivors have almost lost everything, including houses, family ties, and precious memories, and any of these alone could be enough to destroy them.
In Natori Prefecture, 15 kilometers away from the Sendai airport, Ms. Takanashi and many others now make a living on farming. She is one of the survivors.
My husband and I survived. My elder sister lived next to us. She was swept away by the tsunami. We still haven't found her body.
More than that, there are also many people who are sorry for not being able to save more lives. Kazuyoshi told CNC a story about a nurse. Soon after the earthquake, a nurse received notice from hospital, asking hospital staff to transfer all the patients above the 3rd floor to avoid the imminent tsunami. The nurse tried her best to do the transfer job quickly. However, the speed of the tsunami was far beyond their anticipations. Sadly, more than 10 patients still failed to get out. The nurse says today she can still feel the sorrow and remorse.
She kept saying that she could have been able to save more lives and done things differently. She felt she didn't deserve to live.
The nurse lost contact with her family after the disaster. Fortunately, they found each other 5 days later, and she also feels guilty that she didn't take a good care of her family in the disaster. Like the nurse, many survivors were both victims and rescuers right after the disaster. And thus, psychologists say they're vulnerable to a doubled psychopressure.
Generally speaking, after going through severe natural disasters, the survivors will have the so-called post-traumatic stress disorder. The symptom includes feeling depressive, self-closing, insomnia, and recalling horrible scenes of the disaster, and it's very dangerous.
The earthquake is over, but it changed the survivors' living environment and family structure dramatically. Lots of children become orphans and have to live with other families. They feel insecure in the new environment and hardly move on. Many kids tend to be irritable, with behaviors like abnormal panic while playing a game or screaming in nightmare. It could be a lifelong influence if children with such symptoms can't be treated in time. To prevent that from happening, Kazuyoshi and his colleagues set up cafes for victims to communicate with each other.
Last June, we set up a cafe around the temporary housing area in Miyagi-Ken County. The purpose was to provide the victims a place to communicate with each other. People talk about their stories and share with each other their sufferings and pains. It's good for their psychological recovery.
As post-disaster supporters, Kazuyoshi and his colleagues hope that more communication centers like the cafes could be set up across the disaster zone to help more people as possible. All men are supposed to be tied together. No one is alone. We should think more about other people, help and support each other, friends and our lifelong treasure. That is what Kazuyoshi wrote on his notebook after he came back from the disaster zone.
This is CNC World, a new perspective.